Over
Thank
to
you,
you.
Sri Kumar, and good evening, all distinguished panelists as well as participants in this discussion. Just let me correct myself. I mean, I am heading the education wing in UNICEF here, but at the same time, I was part of World Bank for 14 years, and I was the task team leader for Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan project from the World Bank side between up to 2012. So it's almost like, so a lot of my learning about assessments also came from working with the Ministry of Human Resources Development at that time, looking into national achievement surveys. At the same time, also that it's around 2005 that ASER, the Pradham, has started the annual status of education research, and I had the opportunity to really closely look at what is coming out of the studies, the various dynamics behind those studies. So if you ask me whether I'm in favor of achievement surveys, yes as well as no, and for various reasons. So maybe what I would like to touch upon in the next few minutes is actually some of the dynamics or some of the politics behind it, and also how we can actually use assessments in a better manner. So this year, the important thing is in January 2024, we have the international assessment, PISA, uh, coming out. Again, talking about, I mean, this is PISA is about testing 15 years old children for their learning levels. And it clearly now saying that post COVID, learning is not happening, learning crisis, learning poverty, learning loss, everything is highlighted. But even before this particular round, I think there were a lot of opposition against PISA, because while it actually talked about standardized assessment of children for their skills, somewhere around, it started in 2000, but somewhere around the, process, it was done in every 3 years, initially starting with OECD countries, but then later a lot of East Asian countries joined. But somewhere again, though it was supposed to be looking in the skills, not based on rote memorization, it promoted a lot of teaching to the test, and um some of the countries basically were focusing on this. So a lot of focus of this assessment were on just comparing countries, and it led to, sort of name blame shame kind of thing, which was unfortunate, because something the international community could have used in a more effective way, somewhere became like a bargaining point, or imposing certain ideology in the process. Uh, and though there are other assessments which is not as popular as PISA, like same thing with IEA, TIMS, PEARLS, etc., which look at much more grade level competencies, and which is giving an interesting outcome. Some of the challenges within India when we look at assessments is, so when we talk about assessments, there are at least three types of assessments we are looking at. The classroom assessment, and I think from even during the DPP time, Government of India has been promoting, and with NCRT, we were trying to develop CCE, continuous and comprehensive evaluation, which is more about assessment of learning, assessment for learning, because we are focusing on every child, their gradual formative as well as summative assessment. Somewhere, maybe because it was not really pursued in the right manner, somewhere I think we probably didn't reach the results because there was not enough training, not enough understanding. And then there are examination, which is mainly for certification, all the board exams. I think the country is solely like looking into merit on the basis of these grades and marks based on the annual exam. So it is again much more promoting teaching to the test culture. And the international or national assessments, which is a sample based assessment, is mainly based on understanding what we are doing as an education system rather than testing the children. It is like how the system is not doing enough, or what system can do better. So it is a sample based assessment, and it actually follows certain standardization. And the NCRT led national assessments in India, I remember till around 2008 9, it was based on classical testing theory, wherein you basically ask an easy question, difficult question, you summarize it and say this is the percentage of learning among children. But then there was a very interesting shift, and we moved into an item response theory based analysis, wherein you're actually discriminating about the ability. Say, for example, if you ask a child 12 plus 8, how much? You're already giving the direct task. Whereas if you ask a child, I have 12 bananas, somebody else gave me 8 bananas, how many bananas total? So the child has to really think about what is the function. So this is more about application. So the application question will get slightly more weight so that we know a child how much they can do. So the national assessment tests have been coming, and they are actually still giving very valid information. But at the same time, then these independent assessments came, but the challenge is they were basically, even the ASER 2005 to 2015, which was focused on young children, 6 to 14 years old. Great exercise, but the challenge is they were again focusing on naming, blaming, shaming certain states and trying to say that you take us, if you have funds, we will help you to have a learning enhancement program. And it was again more like a political bargaining rather than really focusing on what the state, I mean, the state governments could do, in fact, promoting the SCRTs in terms of adapting actual methods. It sort of failed. Uh, just given this background, I mean, I was really surprised to see the latest ASAR, because this is actually looking into second decade children, 14 to 18 years old. And it actually says that children are able to do things, because this is actually much positive picture than what they have been talking about for 10 years about younger children. So it's like, I mean, I'm like, things improved in India then in that case. So it was very surprising, these results. So for me, in fact, I feel the very fact that I would have assumed that there are more outer school children in this age group. But the survey actually says there are lesser number of outer school children, but children are attending lesser, I mean, the grades which is below their age group. So I'm not worried about that. But I also thought that it is interesting that a lot of things are not really bad compared to the previous SS surveys. My major problem with both national assessments, which is done by the government approved NCRT, or now this year CBSE is going to do the national assessment, and the other surveys, is that they are not analyzing data adequately. In my view, all these surveys collect data on households, the child's background. They have the data about the school. They have data from the teachers about the pedagogical practice. They are not using it adequately. So um, I joined UNICEF a few years ago in Uzbekistan, when the country actually started. I mean, after the death of their previous dictator kind of person, the new system wanted to really look at education, and I actually was part of designing the first ever learning assessment. And the most important thing is, maybe I've, and then now in Bangladesh we have just done the national assessment survey. It brings out a lot of interesting results, just going beyond saying who is learning, who is not learning. Maybe I just thought I'll share a couple of slides if possible, because I think it will help you to understand the analysis possible. So I'm just trying to share the screen. Please let me know if this is visible to you.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so this is basically the starting point. I mean, now why everyone is talking about learning, because now all the evidences shows that schooling, we used in Human Development Index, we use number of years of schooling. It's very evident that schooling doesn't is not adequate. We need to really look at test scores, and I think many of the people who spoke before me already spoke about some of these aspects, which is like. Just want to say that why foundational learning is important, because of this is the Matthew effect, where we say that if initially children may have limited gaps, but then if we don't really ensure that they learn, the gap actually expands, and which is not good for learning. So this is, I'm just trying to show uh, a summarized score from Uzbekistan primary education, just trying to say that while more children learn about, I mean, they acquire knowledge, which is like if you give directly say that somebody is a good person and ask the child, what is he, so he may say, oh, that person is a good person, or somebody's name is Y, and then the child is asked what is his name and they can answer. But then whether they are able to do application or higher order thinking, which is reading beyond what is obvious. So we see that critical fault, this is evident in most countries, that there is something that we need to do with curriculum, where we need to really look at where how to go beyond just passing the information to inculcate. I think Madam Shakila was talking about the importance of joyful learning, where children learn many of these things in a joyful manner. One of the important things I want to say is globally, all studies show that there are high performing schools, low performing schools, which means there are some factors. So there is some accumulation, I mean, cumulative factors. So one of the things we need to look at is what are the issues in low performing schools, how do we raise the performance of these schools and make them as good as the high performing schools. And within I mean, all kinds of schools, you have high performing children, low performing children. In fact, you will find in low performing schools you have more variety, in the sense children, you have, lot of diversity in learning levels. So we say between school effects and within school effects, and we need to examine things in the socio-ecological model, wherein what I mentioned about knowledge application, higher order thinking is more in the area of curriculum. But if you really look at school level, we need to look at the school environment, teachers, leadership, and then at the center is the child, which is about their home environment, parental involvement, etc. So just a few examples. What we see in this study, I mean, this is again just data from Uzbekistan. I just thought it is easier. This is based on multivariate, multi-level regression analysis, where we actually say that good learners have an enabling home environment. So we have an index of whether the children have space to learn, adequate X, Y, Z. So if you really, so this is something we need to convey to the parents about providing that enabling environment. So there needs to be social and behavior change strategy. We don't say it's just as communication anymore. Then I'm trying to, just give me a second. Yeah. So then one of the things is, as I said, good learners have a lot of educational resources, basically promoting reading habits. And this is coming out very well in Bangladesh. Those who have children who read for pleasure and leisure, they learn better. I remember in our childhood, we had a lot of materials, especially in Kerala, a lot of children's magazine. I don't know whether these magazines are still popular, but I think those materials really promote learning. Preschool education or early childhood education, it's a huge boost for learning. So in Uzbekistan, before the study, they were only reaching out to 20% of the children were having preschool education. Government invested heavily in preschool education. So by the time I was leaving, they were like reaching 80% preschool enrollment. So I found this as a great impact on how we affect policies. I think everyone spoke about the importance of language, home language. Those who study in home language in school, they do definitely better. So somewhere we need to see how we can really support home language for children, at least in early years. In coming to some of the school level factors, of course we talk about how safe environment is important in school, where they don't have fear. In many countries, and these are international studies, speak about children experiencing different kinds of bullying, and these bullying actually pull down the morale of children. They don't learn enough. Students' attitude and experience matters. I mean, I don't want to really go much more into this, so I just wanted to just share with you some of these results coming out. So, in my view, what is important is we have a lot of data. We are not analyzing enough, or we are not bringing out the results for either influencing, say, the community. I mean, in Bangladesh, the study which we just finished actually shows private tuition is negatively affecting children's learning when you control for all other factors. So, the question we are now asking is, how do we tell parents that this is of no use to you? So we are telling government, can we come out with a communication strategy, a behavior change strategy, wherein we tell them, let's have learning enhancement within school, don't waste. I mean, so let's try that. So for that, we need to first have learning enhancement programs. So what I'm trying to say is, we need to see learning assessment not in isolation. So one of the questions we always discuss when we were discussing about ASR data is that every year, if you just measuring a cow every now and then is not going to improve the health of the cow, or the weight of the cow. You need to feed it, you need to really take care of that. I think the problem with these studies were basically some of this assessment, they were basically used just to shame the public system and say private is doing better, without really looking into whether they offer the right education. So, in my view, what we need to do is encourage national researchers, or systems to really go beyond just measuring, and to find some of these factors and see how we can help government to both in terms of create evidence as well as support the academics, or whoever working on improving the system to create that whatever is required, and then creating an enabling environment for them to really work with the parents and the community to enhance children's learning. This is all from a very sort of, I'm not an academician, but much more of a development person. This is what I have observed over the years. Thank you.